Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Four Towers Films.
And I'm Doug218. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How's it going with you?
It is going fantastic. And we're here to talk about.
Masterchef Canada Return to Win, Episode 2.
And this episode was a doozy.
It was.
Wow. Okay, it was a 3-tier challenge. Now, if you guys remember from last week, Andre won. So
Yes.
his advantage was he didn't have to deal with any of this challenge.
Right. He got to go up
Upstairs.
the balcony.
So he was safe.
Right. Right from the beginning.
So the special guest for round 1, we find out it's 3 rounds. And it's
Right.
all Japanese cuisine.
Japanese cuisine, and they're not easy dishes that they had to do
No.
either.
So the gentleman that judged round 1, which was 15 minutes that they had to do this, his name was Chef Kimura, and he's head of the Japanese Sushi Association of Canada.
Right.
So
And he's like a world-renowned sushi chef. And like they were talking about, it takes years to learn how to do sushi and sashimi properly. But they only gave them 15 minutes.
And it was a red snapper sashimi.
Right. And they showed him how to do it. And it's really pretty how he plated it. It was so thin. And it was like in a circle, almost looked like a flower.
It,
Really
it, it looked
pretty.
like exactly like the open petals of a flower with the bud in the center. Now, 4 were going to be safe
Right.
in this round.
Right.
The remaining would go into round 2, but we'll get into round 2 in a minute.
And it gets worse from
It
there.
gets worse. Basically, everyone just hit it like nobody's business, but
Right.
Mid-
And April Lee had a little bit of problems with it.
she stumbled, like trying to take the fillet off the fish.
And so she damaged the first half. Like they had to split the fish in half. And she damaged the one side of it. So she actually went back and picked the other half up and started again. Which, I mean, is good because she wants to try to make it as good as possible.
Of course.
But it actually put her behind the other chefs.
So the clock's clicking down, and they're like, "Oh my God, is she gonna do this? Is she gonna make it?" She pulls it out.
She actually, yeah, she did.
She finished
She did.
like this.
And who was it that what was his name? I think
Okay.
he did the actual traditional Japanese way of doing it. Which-
Andrew.
Andrew.
Sorry,
No,
sorry,
not Andrew.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, that's right. He did it the traditional actual Japanese way, which is coming in on an angle, curving it, and then finishing at 9 degrees. And the sushi chef is like very good. It looked really pretty when he did.
And that's a neat tip for you
Yes.
guys to remember if you wanted
Yeah.
to slice something really wafer thin. Come in at the angle in that last second, 90
Right.
degrees it. Okay, so
So they went around instead of having them all come up because there's all 11 chefs that they were judging. So instead of having them all come up, all the chefs went to each of their stations. They're all in the rows, so they went to each of their stations and checked them. And some were a bit ragged, like April's was a bit ragged, and some of the others were. And I mean, this is just the first time most of these had ever done.
and 15
before, and it's not a lot of
15
time.
minutes, yeah.
And so, and of course, some of them were really good, and even what was the,
Chef Kimura.
even said that that's your first time doing it. That's a really good job. So very good. Yeah, it was a very good job. So it came down to the 4
The 4 of
that
them
went up to the balcony.
and the 4 that went up were
Well, the winner was Jeremy.
Jeremy,
He got
'cause
the best. He had the best plate.
he had it like you could look through the slices.
It was really pretty.
So the 4 that went up to the balcony to hang out with Andre were Jeremy, May, Andrew, and Thea.
Yeah, they had good plates.
A very good place.
So then you're on to round two.
And they had to make a maki roll.
Right.
Now, if you've had sushi or you are familiar with sushi cuisine, maki roll is reversed. The rice is on the outside and your components are on the inside.
Right.
And they gave them kind of free reign to do it, but they said it had to have one tempura component.
Yes.
And it also had to have a favorite ingredient. And they gave them, for this one, 25 minutes.
25 minutes. Yeah.
So
they even made comments that they were basically torturing them by making them do this in such a short time.
Yeah, that's what I thought was funny. It's like, we're really putting these guys through the ringer. I'm sitting there doing this over in the kitchen. I can probably hear these guys talking this trash up on the podium.
And they're having fun making them do it, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A few of them...
Well, because they gave them free range,
yeah,
basically, to do whatever kind of flavor they wanted to do. But they did have to have a tempura portion, and there was a couple other things that they had to do.
It had to look like a maki roll,
right.
So you had to make sure the rice was on the outside,
right?
And your vegetables had to be done in a traditional sense.
Yeah.
But
some of them came up with some kind of interesting flavors. Like, I think, was it April Lee? She came out with...
a deli maki roll.
Yeah, deli maki roll. And then she said during the whole pandemic that she's done this at home for her family. But she used, like, deli meat, so I think it was salami. And now that's kind of... Processed meat can be very salty, so...
And that's even what Chef Elvin had said, you know.
Yeah.
Innovative, interesting idea, but it's a salty meat you're using.
Right.
And
it can overpower, because rice is very delicate, doesn't have a lot of flavor, and it can pull in a lot of flavors of other things. So if you've got a meat like salami or something like that, it's actually going to overpower the rest of your food, especially
for sure.
if you've got vegetables and stuff in it. And so it was kind of on the salty side for April Lee.
Well, and a few of them were kind of like struggling a bit. Jen was like all over the place. And
she was like frazzled.
Just frazzled.
Because she was so worried about her time. And at one point, I believe she forgot the soy sauce or the sesame oil. So she's like running back into the kitchen and grabbing it and coming back out and pouring it on. And she's just like all over the place. And Claudio actually came over and said, you know, how are you doing? And she's like, oh, you know, I'm okay. I'm a bit frazzled. And he basically said to her, you know you have the skills to do this.
You've got this.
You've got this. So
relax.
Relax. And she goes, you know, you're right, I do. She actually used an expletive there, but, you know.
We're a family show, so.
So, you know, she's like, you know, you're right, I do. So, but it was, at times you almost thought that maybe she'd run out of time.
Well,
but she didn't. She actually completed it.
And Barry, his rice wasn't finished.
Right. Well, because he was looking at the time. He was trying to time it.
Yes.
So that, you know, it takes this long to cook the rice.
Of course.
And as you know, anything with like sushi or maki, the rice has to be perfect. So
there can be no water.
Right. And he was timing it. And so he thought, okay, I looked at the time. It's perfect. It's ready. So he lifted up the lid and it was still watery. So he poured it out onto, they got a baking sheet. He poured it out, and he actually put it into the pantry area. So I'm not really sure where he put it, because he didn't say.
He went off camera,
and the camera didn't follow him. So, and he's saying that if it cooled down, which is true, rice will absorb the water over time. So he figured, you know, if it cooled down, it should still absorb the water. So he's thinking, you know, I don't have time to make more. So he put it in there, and then he worked the rest of his dish, and he actually made a
fish and chip
fish
maki.
And chips, and he did that because he said the first meal that him and his wife had after a lot of the dining in his area was open with the pandemic was fish and chips.
Exactly.
So it was a way to honor her.
And
but it's interesting what he did. I think he did lobster or squid-like legs, and the chips were like diced up
asparagus. I believe.
So it wasn't actual potato. It was like
a play on it. And Michael's like, wait a minute, this isn't part of the brief, like, because it still had some moisture, so he did a double layer of seaweed.
Right. Yeah, because when he got it back out and he was putting it down on his the rolling mat, he's like, it's still moisture's not going to hold together as he rolls it. So even though he knew it was supposed to be on the outside, he put another layer of nori on top and then rolled it that way.
And so Michael said, okay, look, you did the best you can to rescue it. But...
Well, because it's funny, when he first looked at him and they're presenting it, Michael's saying, it's not really the brief. But, and so Barry explained why he did it the way he did. And Michael said, you made the best of the situation. There's not much you can do about it, kind of thing.
So Jen, who was running around like a crazy lady, she did a ginger soy tuna, and it had tuna, mango, and, she did a ginger soy tuna, and she got good reviews over it.
Yeah, they liked it. Thought it was delicious and pretty, too.
Andy
did a good job.
Yeah, she did a very good job. Andy did tuna, mango, and scallop. Claudio tasted it and said, you know what, the ratios are off.
Well, he had too much rice.
And so Andy's kind of like, okay. Then Marissa did a surf and turf.
Right.
Now,
she used Wagyu beef.
That's
it's
top
expensive
tier.
beef. It's expensive beef.
Now, you remember previous episode, she did a play on surf and turf.
Right.
And Alvin eviscerated her over that.
Right.
He gave her rave reviews.
Well, see, with this, he didn't like the appearance. He thought it was clunky. And because some of the cuts were off, so some of the Wagyu was bigger, and then others, the same with some of the vegetables, they weren't quite even, and even the roll was a little bit off. So he goes, the look, the appearance wasn't that great, but he did like the flavor, so
redemption for
well, like he said, she knows how to cook. She's good with her flavors. That's not really her problem. Even with the last time she did surf and turf, it wasn't really the flavor. She's good at cooking. It's her presentation that she needs to work on. Like even the last week when she did the surf and turf.
Yeah, and that's what he said.
It was her presentation really that she needs to work on.
Okay, so we said we talked about Marissa, and we already said about Barry doing.
Right.
Fish and chip Mackie. April did the deli, and
deli Mackie.
And Alvin said, interesting idea, but the flavors are uneven because you're using prepackaged meats. Too salty.
Well, like he said to her, we like that you're innovative, because she is. She can think outside the box, and she comes up with interesting ideas. But he's saying she needs to refine that a little bit more. And because I think it probably would have worked if she'd used maybe a different kind of meat, because it was really salty, and that's really all they tasted.
And then Christopher, if you remember from his season, he was known as a baker.
Right. Yes.
And because him and his fiancée, they love to eat Japanese food. He did a vegetarian Mackie, and Claudio gave him rave reviews.
Oh, it was really pretty.
It was beautiful. The plate was exquisite.
Yeah. And I like the flavor.
And Claudio said, your sweet was on par, and your savory is catching up.
Mm-hmm. Well, because he said that's one of the reasons he wanted to come back, because he was known as a baker the last time. I mean, when he did the sweet, and when they did the dessert challenges, he always did a good job with that, because that's what it's known
for. That was his house. That was his wheelhouse, exactly.
And he said he really wanted to come back and prove he can do savory too.
That's it.
So far, he is.
So,
of course, they only showed a couple of the ones as usual, because time constraints.
So the three that went up to the balcony.
These were the three that won.
The three that won were Christopher, Jen, and Marissa.
Yeah.
So that basically.
And actually, with Marissa, it was not unanimous.
Yeah, they were like, because you could hear like a bit of the snippet of the judges, and they were kind of back and forth. So you knew somebody they were trying to reach a consensus on someone.
But when you listen to what they were saying, you kind of had a feeling it'd be Marissa, because they did like the flavor of her. They may not like the look of it, but they did like the flavor. So you kind of had the idea that it probably would be Marissa. So she was the last one to go up. So then we went to round 3, which would be the final elimination challenge.
So, and this was a replication challenge.
And we're left with April Lee, Barry,
and Andy.
And Andrew.
And so it was okonomiyaki.
Yeah.
And
they had to replicate it, which is a
it's
cabbage pancake.
Like a pancake with cabbage and vegetables, but they weren't doing a traditional okonomiyaki. They were doing it how the judges wanted it.
Well, they said that you can make it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to make it, but they said, we're not going to let you make it the way you want to make it. You're going to make it the way we like it.
Yeah.
And because it's a replication challenge, you had to make it pretty as close to exact as their example as you could get. So they got to come up and taste it and try to memorize everything that was in it. I mean, there's just so many ingredients.
Oh my gosh.
So to remember, I know there was like, I think it was octopus
and cured meat, the vegetables, the sauce. Oh,
it was a lot.
It was a lot of stuff.
Even for them to remember. I mean, they're just doing it even by taste and what they were told was in it. So
20 minutes.
And that's all they gave them.
That's all they gave them.
Yeah.
And again, you hear the trash talking from the podium.
Well, because like Michael's like, we're really putting them through
the
this,
ringer,
you know?
yeah.
And what would he say? It's like almost downright cruel.
It's downright cruel. And Claudio's like, yeah, it's downright cruel what we're doing. Again, if you're out there cooking, you can hear this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And you're probably going, yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Invite me back and put me through this. Fabulous.
Great.
Okay, so they're hustling. Andy's in the zone. Andrew was in the zone.
Andrew, yeah. Andrew. I don't know what he prefers. They call him Andrew.
So and Barry was locked in as well.
Yeah.
April, she she stumbled a little bit, and then that switch got flipped. And then she was just streamlining everything.
Well, she was doing multiple things at once. So she was like cooking her meat and doing the pancake and all at the same time.
The pancake.
I mean, they actually had to yell down to her because at one point they could smell a pancake burning.
Yeah.
And so they're like, April, Lee, your pancake.
Turn the pancake over.
So what she did, I mean, you're talking a big pan, like frying pan size pancake.
Yeah.
And she did it chef way of doing it. She flipped it in the pan, and they're all like, "Oh no!" Because it did break apart a little bit.
Yeah, and that was one of the criteria that they would look at. It had to maintain its shape.
Right. Where Barry and Andrew took that big cookie sheet and put it over top and flipped it that way.
So, time's clicking down. Barry finishes first.
What? Because he actually took his pancake out and played it and started putting all the extras on the top, and even the ones up in the balcony
too early.
was saying
it's
too
early.
It's going to be undercooked.
Yeah,
it's thick. So and it's going to take longer to cook. I mean, it might look done, but because it's a thick pancake, the middle may be undercooked. So they're like, it's too early. Don't take it out of the oven
and
yet. And he's like, no, because he was worried about being behind the time.
Exactly.
You know, because that's not overly his problem, but he was worried about that. So he goes, no, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah. So he put it on the plate and started putting all the
additional ingredients
stuff on the top, where everybody else left them still cooking.
Yeah.
Until pretty much the last second.
Oh yeah. Excuse me,
and
guys.
So they're like at maybe a minute out. And Barry's pretty much done.
And he's waiting.
He brought his plate up, and he's waiting for the others.
And Alvin's like, look, so...
And then the other two plated it at roughly a minute to finish, and then they're racing to put all the sauce and everything on it. And so they run up to the front, and Andrew's the last. He's still at his station.
Yeah, and they're like, Andrew,
and they're like,
you
Andrew, get up there!
You gotta go!
And so he finally races up, and so they all did make it, so that's good.
Okay.
And then they taste it.
So,
I believe they tasted Andrew's first.
No, they actually
April.
April's first. They said it was pretty good.
What they liked, this is how I think it was Claudio tasted hers. they said, of course, because she did the chef flip, it
It broke it
compromised
up.
the texture and it broke it.
Yeah.
And then, but when he tasted it, he goes, I don't like
Like
it.
it.
I
Yeah.
love it. So she nailed the flavors.
But you could see the look on her face when he's like, oh, crud.
He's like, what do you mean you don't like,
like
it?
And then he's like, I love it.
Yeah, I love it. So
Okay.
that was good.
So
Then I think he did.
Alvin tasted berries.
Right.
And he's like,
It was
it's cool.
underdone.
Underdone.
It's still sticky.
You know, and it's It's an off-putting sensation.
He said he liked the flavors though.
Yeah,
He
but
nailed the flavors. It's just it was undercooked, so it's still sticky.
and then Chef Michael did and tasted Andrews. He said, "You were the closest one to get the cook,
Right.
but it was just a smidge under seasoned." So he's like, and the last comment he said before he went back up on the podium was, "Now it's going to be really nitpicky."
Well, that's basically what it came down to.
Yeah.
And that's what they said. They said it's such a tight race because
Yeah.
they all had some mistakes, but they all had pretty good flavors to it too. So it really came down to very
Nitpick
nitpicky
stuff, yeah.
things. So basically, in the end, it ended up being berry.
Berry, yeah.
Primarily because it was undercooked. I mean, you kind of see that coming because
Of
that's
course.
usually the case. That if it's undercooked or it's burnt or whatever, that tends to be the one that they'll let go, even if they like the flavor.
So it was a pretty action-packed challenge, and you could see these guys at the end of this were exhausted.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, wow.
Well, because even April said that, and they even said to her, because she was like going through the whole, even
Yeah.
the last challenge,
Didn't
and they're like saying they were amazed at her energy.
Yeah.
Because she had so many things going, and she still had a lot of energy. So
Yeah.
it was a hard challenge. Like,
Oh.
I mean, Japanese cooking's not that easy to do,
And
especially if you've never really done it before. Now, of course, there's a couple that did.
Yeah.
So they had advantages. And
Of
even
course.
April said she had done a few of these things before, but now you're under a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
I mean, at home or in a restaurant, you've got hours to
Yeah.
do this
Right.
to make it perfect. And they only have like 15 minutes or 20 minutes at best. Like
And-
this last one was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of time. You know, and now you're competing against some of the best cooks that have been on the show.
Exactly.
So you can see where the pressure would get to you.
Oh, for sure.
So, and
for
Nella
sure.
did an amazing job with it. So,
You know, so congrats to everybody that made it into the next round. As we saw in the commercial package for the next episode, it's a team challenge. It looks
yes.
like, and it's a food service.
What it looks like is that they're doing their own food app. Now, I don't know if they're delivering to real customers outside in the real world or what, but they have these orders that come in and that they're having to do this food challenge.
Yeah, so it should be interesting.
Kind of like a skip the dishes or Uber Eats kind of thing. So it should be interesting. That's next Sunday.
So it was a good episode.
It
Thank
was.
you for having me on today.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you guys for watching. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here, and I hope you come back next week. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on the notification bell up there so you know when we go live. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.